Pleasant morning, everyone. My name is Muhammad Sabedin from BSN English 1B. So, we are given a task to discuss the following terms: linguistics, language, grammar, lexicon, phoneme, morpheme, lexeme, context, syntax as one of the five main components of language, phonology, phonetics, phonemics, morphology, syntax as a branch of linguistics, semantics, pragmatics, macro skills, micro skills, linguistic competence, linguistic performance, first language, second language, mother tongue, native tongue, lingua franca, pidgin, Creole, foreign language, dialect, and international phonetic alphabet or IPA. So let's first discuss the language. Language is a communication system that includes words and systematic rules to organize those words and transmit information from one individual to another. Not all communication is a language. Many species live on this planet also communicate. However, it is the language that what makes human unique among all creatures because many species communicate through their movements, postures, odor, and vocalization. It is a complete set of meaningful units in a language. So as we all know that sentences are made up of words. So lexicon is the one of the keys to actually make a meaningful sentence. Lexicon refers to the words of a given language, and it is also known as the language's vocabulary. Grammar refers to the set of rules that are used to convey meanings through the use of the lexicons. Grammar also refers to the collection of principles, defining how to put together or create a meaningful sentence. So, the grammar is very important because through through grammar we will be able to know the correct placements of words because not all words can be placed anywhere in a sentence. Some words may always appear at the beginning of a sentence, some are in between sentence, and some always appear at the end of a sentence. So it's very important to know the grammar of a certain language because and also different languages have different set of rules regarding the placements of words in a sentence or in a speech. Next is phoneme. Phonemes such as a versus e. Phoneme is a basic sound unit of a given language. Different languages have different sets of phonemes, and morphemes are the combination of phonemes. Morphemes, which are the basic unit of a given language that convey some type of meaning. And the difference and word and morphemes cannot stand on its own. So the difference between the word and morpheme is that morpheme cannot stand on its own. So it needs other morphemes to create a meaningful word, and then words can stand on its own. So that's the difference between these two. Semantics and syntax are used to construct language. They are both part of the language's grammar. Semantic refers to the way by which we derive meanings from morphemes and words. And then syntax refers to the way words are organized or arranged in a sentence. So both of these two are connected to each other. For instance, the semantics, which means the derivation of meanings from morphemes and words, you cannot place these words anywhere, just like what I have mentioned before. So through the syntax, we will know where are the exact position these words are going to be placed. Lexeme is a set of inflected forms taken by a single word. As we all know, there are five main components of a language, which are the phonemes, morphemes, lexemes, syntax, and context, along with grammar, pragmatics, and semantics. Lexemes refers to the set of words that will be included under one entry in the language, or in the dictionary rather. Members of the lexeme are run, included the run, the uninflected form of the word, and then running, inflected form, and then lastly the word run, which is spelled as RAN. The common thing between this word is that they have one grammatical category, which is the verb. Excluded the word runner because it has a derivational derivational suffix attached to it, so it is now a noun. Next is context. Context is how everything within a language works together to convey a particular meaning. It includes tone of voice, body language, and words being used. In addition, implicatures are heavily dependent upon the context of the language and including its participants. So, context is very crucial for understanding because there are a lot of implications under one context. So different people have different implications upon one context. So it's very important to give a clear idea about what the context is all about to avoid negative implications. Linguistics refers to the scientific study of the human language. Linguistics has the two main branches, which are the microlinguistics and the macrolinguistics. Under microlinguistics are the following: phonology, phonetics, morphology, semantics, pragmatics, and syntax. Under the other branch of the linguistics is the macrolinguistics. Under this branch is these two sub-branches, which are the interdisciplinary and the intradisciplinary. Under interdisciplinary are the following: theoretical, applied, historical, descriptive, and comparative. Under interdisciplinary are the following: social linguistics, psychological linguistics, neurolinguistics, stylistics, cognitive linguistics, geographical linguistics, and lastly, the comparative linguistics. Next is the syntax as the branch of linguistics. It is the study of phrase structure, clauses, and sentences in a language. Syntax as a branch of linguistics is the property of grammar that governs sentence structure. Next one is morphology. Morphology deals with forms of words, use of words, and construction of words by small letters. Furthermore, morphology deals with the study of how words are formed into small, meaningful units, which are the morphemes. And then, morphology is divided into two further branches, which are the inflectional morphology and the derivational morphology. Next is phonology. Phonology is the use of vocalized sounds and system of sounds to form language. So the concept of phonology is very important for a certain language to exist. To further understand the concept of phonology, phonology focuses on the study of how sounds are arranged in each language as an organized units of speech. The next one is the phonetics. Phonetics is the study of speech faculty or the study of sounds of language. As we all know, different languages have different set of sound according to their language that they grew up with. And then these sounds are arranged or organized in phonological order. Now let's move on pragmatics. Pragmatics is the study of how utterances are used in communicative acts. So pragmatics also deals with the meaning. However, it focuses on the meanings on context rather than individual word meaning. So that's the difference between pragmatics and semantics. Semantics deals with the individual meaning of a word. The next one is the macro skills. Macro skills commonly referred to listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So now let's move into discussion of these four main skills of macro skills. First is listening. Listening is a communication technique that requires the listener to interpret, understand, and evaluate what she hears. It also involves mental operations involving the interpretation and understanding of sound waves and then commit them into memory. Next one is the reading. or speaking rather. Speaking is delivery of language through the mouth. To create sounds, we usually use many parts of our body, including the lungs, our mouth, teeth, lips, etc. Next one is the reading. Reading is an ability of enabling the learners to understand a language in a written form. And the main purpose is to extract thoughts, ideas, and information. Lastly is the writing. Writing is special skills that enable us to write something or a piece effectively and succinctly. Micro skills refers to specific competencies for communicating effectively with other people. It is often used by helping professionals to develop skills in counseling, therapy, meditation, and other interventions. Micro skills is also referred to as interviewing skills. Micro skills education teaches helping professionals to develop a high sense of self-awareness and also awareness of others. Typically, this type of education begins with teaching people with the basic communication skills. Language competence refers to the unconscious knowledge of grammar that allows a speaker to use and understand language. It is also known as the grammatical competence. So, for instance, when we were kids back then, we didn't know really much about the rules or the principles of our language. However, we can speak and understand them. So, this is what the language competence is all about. It is the unconscious ability that we have to understand and use the language effectively. Next is language performance. Language performance refers to the use of language, what a speaker actually says, including the hesitations and errors committed. And then it also refers to uh, the action or process of carrying out or accomplishing the task or uh, performance or the function which are related to language. Next is the first language. First language refers to the language that a person has been exposed to since when he or she was a child. So it is also known as the native language or the native tongue or the mother tongue. So the first language is the language that a person has been exposed to when he or she was a child, just like what I have mentioned. However, that certain person has this unconscious ability embedded within himself that he was able to understand and use the language to speak to other people, although he is deprived of the principles and set of rules of the language. So this is what first language is. Next one is the second language. Second language refers to any language that a person uses other than the first or native language. Contemporary linguists and educators commonly use the term L2 to refer to a second language or foreign language. Mother tongue refers to the language or the first language learned at home in childhood and still be understood by the same person even he reached the stage of adulthood. So the mother tongue is also similar to the first language, just like what we have discussed. The first language is the language that a person has been exposed to when he was still a child, even though he or she is deprived of the principles and the set of rules of grammar to that language. He has this unconscious skill and knowledge to understand and communicate those to the people around him. Native tongue refers to the language of a country that someone is born in or native to. For instance, in the country of America or the United States of America, the native tongue of the American people is the English language. And then let's move on to the Middle East. The native tongue of the Arab people is the Arabic. And then in the Asia, the native tongue, or let's say the native language of the Chinese people of the country of China, is the Chinese. So native tongue refers to the native tongue refers to the native language of someone, which he or she is born in or native to. Now let's move on to lingua franca. Lingua franca is the language used for communication between speakers having different native languages. For instance, here in the Philippines, we have a lot of dialects being spoken by many Filipinos, be it in Luzon, Visayas, or in even the Mindanao. So, without lingua franca, we Filipinos will not be able to understand and communicate with each other. So, with the lingua franca, it serves as a bridge for us to be able to communicate and understand our fellow Filipinos. So the current lingua franca of the Philippines is the Filipino. And in the global scale, the current lingua franca is the English language. Now let's move on to Pidgins and Creoles. Pidgins and Creoles are new languages that developed when speakers of different languages came in contact with each other and have a need to communicate. The concept of Pidgins and Creoles became known when colonial powers came in contact with local people in order to influence. So now let's discuss the concept of Pidgins. Pidgins is a non-native language, which means it has no native lingua franca. Pidgins arises quickly if there's a need for communication, and it is also a restricted type of language, which means it only serves certain purposes. The most common purposes back then is trade and labor. And then the pidgin is compromised between two languages, or it is also a multilingual language. Pidgins, uh, if for instance, if there's a several groups of different languages in a place, the dominant group's language is the one will be used, and they will only adapt the simplified grammar. They will only adapt the basics of that certain language because they only need that language to communicate. Some pidgins become expanded, which means it can be adapted in all areas of life and be passed down from one generation to another. To be connected to creoles, let's start by defining or discussing the concept of creoles. Creoles usually starts as a pidgin. To be more specific, an expanded type of pidgin. So when this pidgin survives, the children of that certain generation will adopt this language, this type of language, and make this as their native language. So some countries have different creoles, which are based on different colonial powers back then. So in the Philippines, we have the Spanish-based creole, which is the Chavacano. Dialect can be understood as a versions of a single language that are mutually intelligible but that differ in systematic ways from each other. Dialects can also be understood as a variety of speech that differs someone from another variety of speech of that same language. Some dialects are based on different regions, such as here in the Philippines, we have a lot of dialects. However, just like what I have been mentioned, they are based on different languages. For instance, here in the Philippines, we have 8 major dialects. We have the Bicol, Cebuano, Hiligaynon, Ilocano, Kapampangan, Pangasinan, Tagalog, and Waray. And if the language is mutually intelligible, if that certain language is mutually intelligible and mutually comprehensible, then that dialect came from a single language. The International Phonetic Alphabet is an internationally recognized set of phonetic symbols developed in the late 19th century. The IPA is based on the principle of strict one-to-one correspondence between sounds and symbols. In addition, the IPA is an alphabetic system of phonetic notations based on based primarily on the Latin script.